Hey everybody, and welcome back to Shunik Missing Persons. The topic of today's video is going to be discussing the aspects of a missing person campaign, and really I think I'd like to entitle this video First Steps in Looking for a Missing Loved One. And as per usual with my disclaimers, just keep in mind this might not be appropriate for everyone, but generally speaking, these are the things that we should be doing as soon as we realize that our person is missing. Today, we're going to be talking about what a missing person campaign is, what to do as soon as you realize someone is missing, what to have prepared when you file a missing person report with the police, how to increase community and media attention and engagement. I call the search for a missing person campaign for the reason that you're doing a public appeal or plea for assistance, and you're sharing information about the missing individual to make them more attractive or understood by your community. In general, a campaign is an organized course of action that you use to achieve a specific goal. And the goal of a missing person campaign is to locate that person. A missing person campaign should have a few leaders established with one solo person that's interacting directly with the community and police and media. And the campaign should be able to communicate information about the missing person, the circumstances that have attributed to their disappearance, and you should be able to use the campaign to express and ask for the type of support that is necessary at the time. Missing person campaigns are going to start with the immediate family and friends of the missing individual, spread to the local communities that you're in, ideally throughout your entire community, then into surrounding parish or counties, become statewide, and then if appropriate, go national. In the last video, you all may have heard me say something like, if a person has done reasonable things to look for their missing individual, we're going to talk about what those reasonable things are. And these are the very first steps we should be taking when we're looking for a missing person. Step one, contact family members and friends of that missing person. Contacting close people to the missing person not only will help narrow down who the last person they were with, or maybe the last place that they were known to be was, but it can also give you an idea of the state of mind the person was in, whether or not they were with their vehicle, and any other information that may be important to know later. When you contact your family members and friends, make sure that you take down any information that may be pertinent and at least get a timeline together. This way, when you contact the police for a missing person report, if necessary, you'll have everything that they might ask you about initially. Once you get that list of details together, then you can move on from communicating with your family and friends and to contacting other groups. I know that when my family filed the missing person report for my sister, the first thing they did was ask us if we had already contacted hospitals, rehabilitation centers, shelters, to make sure that she wasn't at one of those locations. And we hadn't. So before they sent an officer out, they had us call around to all the hospitals and other groups that I mentioned. A issue that you may come across when you try to contact clinical businesses, if your missing loved one is an adult, especially if they check themselves in, the hospital or rehab may not be able to tell you whether or not that person is in fact there. And legally, they can't. Step two should be calling hospitals, rehabs, shelters, mental health institutions, and anything else you can think of where a person may be for support. Once you've done step one and two, step three should be filing a missing person report. It's a myth that you have to wait 24 hours to file a report. You should file the report as soon as you believe that person is missing and you've done the reasonable things to find them. The reason police reports are so important in missing person cases is because the family really has no power. We cannot hire or enlist search and rescue. We cannot enlist dog teams. We cannot call Border Patrol. We really can't do anything without the police or lead detective giving their explicit permission. And I know personally that most nonprofits that support family members won't take a case unless there's a missing person report attached to it. When you file a missing person report, they're going to send an officer or two out to your home or wherever your location is in order to take the report in person.
Hey everyone, I'm pausing here for two reasons, I suppose. Reason number one, I made a website, shunikmp.com. Check it out. The real reason I paused here is because I realized I forgot to mention something super important about filing missing person reports with the police. Some departments will take police reports over the phone. It depends on what state you live in. Some states only do missing person reports in person in the state where the person is missing from. And some will only allow missing person reports to be filed from like an immediate family member. So if you have a loved one who's gone missing in a state that you don't live in, you may need to kind of look into what their policy is and either arrange for someone in that state to file the report for you or see if the closest family member is able to go and file it for you. Just a heads up, totally forgot to mention that.
The details the police are going to want to know again is age, height, BMI, any other descriptors, any type of tattoos, scars, other markings of interest that will help identify them, what they were last wearing, their last known location, and the vehicle and license plate if appropriate. One of the things that's extremely important to establish as early as possible was the last known location. With modern security cameras, CCTV, and other audiovisual pieces of equipment that are around, it's so much easier to track someone's location and movement in an area, especially if you live in a mildly populated city. And figuring out the last place a person was is going to help you figure out or start to eliminate a lot of possibilities of where they might be. And the faster we're able to alert the police to this situation, the easier it is going to be for them to establish that last known location. As soon as that missing person report is filed, you're going to have free will to start making the best decisions on your plan of action for your campaign. One of the things I recommend you do early is get a small group of people together that you trust. If you have a last known location, you should also start putting out a public request for video footage and security camera footage. Something to know about security cameras at private residences is those people can show you their footage if they want to, put a letter in their mailbox and say, hey, if you wouldn't mind, can you check your camera from this date to this time? Commercial businesses and government businesses for CCTV footage, the police are the only people that are able to request that. This is an urgent matter because CCTV footage and security cameras in public places typically only record for anywhere from 24 to 48 hours up to a week. They only store the footage from the video anywhere from a week to maybe 3 months maximum. So far, we've established step 1, contact close loved ones, family and friends. Step 2, call hospitals, shelters, etc. in order to make sure your missing person is not there. Step 3, file a missing person report. And I guess step 4, even though I didn't state this, should be to, as quickly as possible, figure out the last known location. So now what we want to get into is making a missing person flyer. This can be something that you can do on a template. I'm going to attach my friend's website from previously Missing Person Advocacy Network to now MIST Australia. You can also find templates if you just Google missing person flyer template. The most important things to have on a missing person flyer is a clear, up-to-date image of the missing person. You can choose to use 2 images if you want to, although research that we have done has shown that people tend to respond to and share one image flyers more. We want to have one clear image, and it needs to be up to date, and it really should not be filtered or have any type of retouching or refinishing on it. We want it to be in natural lighting, minimal makeup if the person wears makeup, regular hairstyle, like the most normal picture you can find of them. The reason for this is because when a person has been abducted or is sometimes having a mental break and living on the streets or in some situation where they are missing but still operating in a public setting, the community members really do recognize them, and we want to make sure that they're able to. The flyer should also include the date they went missing and the location, meaning city and state. It should have their basic information, age, height, weight, hair color, eye color, skin color, as well as any identifying markings, tattoos, scars, piercings, surgeries, and so on. The flyer should also have a brief description of what you believe happened. The last thing that you should include on the missing person flyer is the contact information for the police department. If possible, also include the case number that was appointed by the detective. If you have any social media pages created, an email address, or a tip line phone number that you've established, you can also put that there. One thing I encourage you to not place on your missing person flyers is any personal phone number or email addresses. Speaking from personal experience, while Mickey was missing, the person responsible for her disappearance did call my mom. while we were looking for her. But of course, you're not thinking about that when you first have a missing person. So if you've done that, it's okay. Just make sure you switch over to a professional number or a tip line. If you are interested in setting up a phone number, you have to first check with the detective on that missing person case, whoever your contact is at the police department, and then you can make a Google Voice number for free. Once you've created the missing person flyer, it's time to start alerting your community. What you're going to want to do is use your personal social media pages if you have them. If you don't have personal social media pages, ask the people in your family and close friends to please share the missing person flyer or make a missing person post. You don't have to have that type of flyer anymore that we're used to seeing. Social media posts get shared just as frequently as traditional flyers do. And start contacting local media. The easiest way to contact local media and reporters is to go to their Facebook pages, get in their DMs, and start sending the post or the missing person flyer to them. And that's how more and more people are going to start to learn that your loved one is missing. Ideally, we're going to get people to start seeing that. You're going to put out the request for CCTV footage, and people will start to get invested and send information to the police. In the event you have filed a missing person report, created online missing person post or a flyer and started sharing it and gotten some of your community and local media involved and your loved one is still missing, we're going to want to start doing a few other things. A really important way to start communicating with local media, statewide media, is by having a press release. Again, we can simply Google or search for a press release template. You can share this with all the media and ask them to share with their sister stations in other cities and states. And this is how your community can stay up to date. One of the things we want to keep in mind when we are communicating with the media and public is our loved one's life could be at risk. And everything we say could put them at risk. We don't want to believe that the worst might be happening to the person that is missing, but it's always a risk. We don't want to release any information to the public without the explicit permission of the police, unless we truly believe that it's in the best interest of the missing person. When we create press releases, we want them to be factual, professional, grammatically correct, and up to date. We also want to try to stay positive. Even if we believe the worst has happened to the missing person, we want to still have that bit of hope in the releases that we're making, because until we locate them, we don't know what happens. And every day we see a new example of someone who we were sure would never be seen again turning up fine and well. A few things to keep in mind as you're moving through this. You want to be honest with the public. And by that I mean, if your missing loved one struggled with addiction or mental health, suicidal ideation, or other bouts of depression, we want to communicate that to the public. It's important that we at least let the public know about something that could impact the outcome of that missing person circumstance. Outside of your traditional media sources, you can also consider contacting radio stations. And now, we'll talk about how I feel about true crime later, but I have to give them credit where credit's due. True crimers on YouTube and TikTok with big followings really can share information with a lot of people very quickly. Still, in my opinion, Facebook is the best place for sharing information about missing persons. Although younger populations of people like Gen Zs tend not to use Facebook as much as the rest of us do, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram are also really great sources. As your missing person case starts gaining more attention, more people are going to want to be involved, which is wonderful. It's really, really wonderful when volunteers come through. Be aware of people with malintent. If someone seems too eager to be in front of the camera, if someone seems to be eager to get insider information, just make sure that you're not sharing information with people that you don't know, and make sure you're not giving any power over to someone that might be handling money or communicating directly with the media. You also want to look out for private investigators that are brand new. I can't tell you how many PIs I've come across that really have no credentials. They're doing it purely for profit. And unfortunately, they do not really do anything to investigate in the missing person case. Private investigators that are well respected and well seasoned and established in your community are going to be expensive. And there are groups that will work pro bono, but private investigators typically charge. I guess what I'm trying to say is before you hire a private investigator, do your research. Another interesting thing to be aware of is you are going to meet a lot of psychics, mediums, and other clairvoyants. Regardless of how you feel about these individuals, they will come up to you, they will DM you, they're going to show up at the headquarters if you establish one. They will find a way to contact you. Something very interesting that most police say is when they get a psychic reading, they typically follow up on that information because sometimes people will come in pretending that they have some type of psychic ability and they really actually just have information on the case and they're too afraid to share it. If your case is gaining a lot of traction and you need a neutral meeting area for people to come and get missing person flyers to put up around town, you may want to consider establishing a headquarters. A headquarters is going to be a common gathering place that's going to be sort of safe and away from the public. We really don't want information getting out that might put the missing person's life at risk or be detrimental to the case in court whenever it comes time for the criminal justice system to come into this process. You can also often see if you can use a church, especially if it's located on a school grounds, some type of gymnasium or other large area for people to be able to go, and they will donate that space to your campaign. They can write this off as a charitable donation the same way they do if they donate over to a nonprofit organization. You never know if you don't ask. The worst that can happen is it simply can't be provided. The next steps are going to be considered more long term options and choices. You may want to contact search and rescue organizations, especially if the person disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Typically, what's going to happen is the police will search the area first, and you contact the search and rescue group, and then the police have to contact them directly and ask for them to come in. Another group that you may end up contacting could be scent dogs. I'm going to do a longer video talking about the different types of scent dogs because there are many types. We don't just have like ones that do living scent and cadaver dogs. There are dogs that obviously sniff drugs, like if you've ever been to the airport, but that can sniff out explosives and all kinds of other stuff. I've met all these different dogs since I've been doing forensic training, and they're all amazing and very hard workers. But the dog teams I'm talking about are typically going to have scent dogs that will look for a living person. The other types of dogs these dog teams may have are cadaver dogs. Cadaver dogs are trained in locating two different odors that are released from decomposing tissue. Another longer term option is looking into a private investigator. I know I've mentioned them several times now. I recommend a PI in situations where the family is not working well with the police. Maybe the police aren't working well with the family. It does go both ways. Maybe the case has sort of started to go cold, information has died out, or if it's been a long term missing person circumstance, a long term missing person case is anything from 3 months on. Getting any group involved, whether it's search and rescue, dog teams, or private investigators, is a surefire way to drum up some media attention. So the last thing we're going to talk about now with this video is another thing that we have to keep in mind when we're running a missing person campaign. We have to take care of ourselves. The early stages of this, your adrenaline and your sympathetic nervous system are running so high. You can't really sleep. You're not really eating. You're just, you're running on fumes. But as the case goes on, where it's maybe been a week and then 3 weeks and then a couple months and so on, we have to start getting back into a routine where we're able to take care of ourselves. And it's way easier said than done. Make sure you're allowing yourself time to sleep, to exercise if you're into that, or at least, like, I don't know, go for a walk, to try to eat well, or at least as well as you normally do, and to just maintain your personal relationships. We're always going to keep looking for a missing person, but the longer you go without also taking care of yourself, the more energy you're going to start to take away from the campaign as well. So, you being able to take a break and relax is not selfish and it's not detrimental to your missing loved one. It's something that sometimes we have to do in order to keep looking. Hopefully, in this video, we got a good idea of how to establish and organize an initial missing person campaign. If you follow these steps and keep these things in mind, I promise that you're going to start to feel a lot better and like you have a little bit of power over what's happening with this situation. Anyway, if you guys have questions, feel free to leave comments below. As always, thank you for joining me in the fight for missing people, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.